The Indian national movements refer to various mass movements that emerged in India during the colonial period. These movements were led by various political parties and organizations. They worked tirelessly to bring an end to British colonialism in India. Here's a brief overview of the major Indian national movements. The Revolt of 1857, also known as India's First War of Independence or the First Freedom Movement in India, took place on May 10, 1857. It took place in various locations including Meerut, Delhi, Agra, Kanpur and Lucknow. British India saw the rise of numerous political organizations in the late 19th century, with Indian National Congress being the most notable. Its initial goal was to establish a platform for civil and political discussion between Indians and the British Raj in order to secure a larger political role for educated Indians. Later, it was instrumental in organizing large-scale movements against the British government. The Swadeshi movement was a consequence of Lord Curzon's announcement for the partition of Bengal in 1905, on the grounds that the population of Bengal as a whole would be difficult to govern over. However, the British declared the division of Bengal into two provinces with the intention of undermining nationalist unity. It led to the boycott of British products, and radical nationalism was triggered due to the partition of Bengal. The Ghadar movement was a significant turning point in India's quest for independence. Early in the 20th century, a number of stringent immigration laws based on racial discrimination were put in place to reduce the number of Indian immigrants coming to Canada in search of employment. The Ghadar movement might be characterized as a story of extraordinary bravery, labor, and toil that affected every Indian living in foreign countries. Home Rule movement was started by Bal Gangadhar Tilak at Belgaum in April 1916 and later by Annie Besant in Madras in September 1916. Home Rule movement served as the country's response to the First World War and a powerful means to express opposition to British rule. This movement was targeted at achieving self-rule without the interference of the British government. Champaran movement was Mahatma Gandhi's first act of civil disobedience during the struggle for independence, which took place in the Bihar region of Champaran in 1917. The Anarchical and Revolutionary Crimes Act of 1919, passed by the British Indian government, was more often known as the Revolt Act. The act granted the government the authority to imprison anyone accused of engaging in terror activities for up to 2 years without a trial. The freedom of the press was likewise severely restricted by the Revolt Act. Khilafat movement. The Indian Muslims were not happy with the way the British dethroned the Caliph in Turkey. So in 1919, various protests were held against the Britishers. The Muslim League and Congress came together during this time. The Indian National Congress, led by Mahatma Gandhi, began the non-cooperation movement on September 5, 1920. The non-cooperation movement is one of the key movements in India's independence struggle. This was the first mass movement led by Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi led a non-violent civil disobedience movement in colonial India known as the Salt March, also known as Salt Satyagraha, the Dandi March and the Dandi Satyagraha. The leaders of the Indian National Congress were unhappy with the British government for dragging India into the Second World War in 1939 without the Indian people's consent. India backing for the war was highly desired by the British government, and as a result, Viceroy Linlithgow offered a series of recommendations known as the August Offer. After the Indian nationalists demanded an interim government in India in lieu of support in World War II, Indians' freedom to frame their own constitution was acknowledged for the first time in the August Offer 1940. However, the August Offer said after the war, a representative Indian body would be established to draft India's constitution and it would be given dominion status. The INC rejected this offer at its meeting at Wardha in August 1940 and demanded complete freedom from the colonial rule. The individual satyagraha was then started by Mahatma Gandhi to uphold the right to free expression. The INC called for a widespread civil disobedience movement when the Cripps mission, which arrived in India in March 1942, was unable to promise any type of constitutional remedy for India's issues. The idea of an independence movement in India was accepted by the Congress Working Committee at its Wardha meeting on July 14, 1942. Gandhi began this movement in August 1942 in an effort to compel the British to leave India. This campaign, known as the Bharat Chhoro Andolan, compelled the British colonial authorities to consider leaving India.